Solmaz, thank you so much. This is our fourth session together, and I'm sure you have a lot to share with us.
Oh
So
boy.
let's get started. You want to talk about yourself for a minute for those people
Yeah,
who are here
yeah.
for the first time, and then we
It's
get to the
trying
book.
to
Sure.
minute. Yes. Hi, everybody. My name is Solmaz Barghgir. I'm a life coach. I love helping people. I love to see change in my life and in other people's life. That's why I chose this life coaching path. Today, I'm going to talk about a book that the topic is not comfortable for 100% of people, and you may not feel that kind of achiever or yay, let's cheer for it, but that's the most needed topic for every single human being. And because some of you were not here, I really admire every single of you that have been online every day, try to be engaged, learn, and be involved. People like Ghazal, Surush, Kuan, Mehrak Jun, lots of you guys. It takes a lot of effort to do that. And at the same time, I want to thank Alireza for all your effort, all your time, and for your great, brilliant ideas. Thank you very much, Alireza.
Thank you. It couldn't have happened without your help and everyone's help. Thank you so much.
That is, and I need your permission to share my screen.
Sure, I'm going to give you in a few seconds. All right, so tell us about the book you want to share with us.
Yeah, I need the screen.
Oh, okay. All right. You're the host now.
Thank you. I'm co-host, right?
No, you're the host. You're the host now.
So why did you do that?
You have all the power in the world.
Oh my God, man.
Wow.
Okay. Yes, it is fall 2010, and I'm in the most vulnerable time of my life. I'm going through lots of breakdowns, and I really cannot decide for the rest of my life. I'm having goosebumps right now. And I remember it's Friday evening, and I'm sitting in front of my computer, and I'm thinking, what should I do? First thing I do is I Google, what does it mean to be vulnerable? And a video pops up. It's a woman talking in TEDx Houston. She is talking like nobody's looking at her. She's sharing stories so naked that I cannot even imagine someone could have done that. She's talking about topics that are most strangest, not familiar for me. Her name is Brené Brown. For me, after that talk, lots of breakthroughs happened. I listened and listened and listened and cried over and over. I followed her on Facebook at the time. Then she wrote her books. At the time, she was just a researcher, researching about blame and shame for 10 years. And after that, I followed her up to this day. But what happened to Brené? Brené was invited to just give that talk for 15 minutes in Houston TEDx. It was her city, and she thought, what's the worst case scenario? I will talk for 15 minutes, and there are just 500 people. Who cares? Little to know, that video was recorded and went viral. In less than 1 week, 8 million people all over the world were watching that video. And you know what happened, my friends? Lots of critics came to her. She said, everyone told me do not read the comments, but she did a little bit of them, and it was really bitter. She says, one day I sent my husband to work, my kids to school. I sat on the couch. I wrapped myself with blanket, and I was in such a vulnerable place in my life. And ironically, I had researched shame for 10 years. I was promising myself I would never, ever do any talks, no speeches. I would stick to my path of being a researcher. So she was Googling the same way I was, and she comes to this speech of Theodore Roosevelt. He delivered this speech on April 23rd, 1910 in Paris. He says, "It's not the critic who counts, not the man who points out how the strong man stumbles, or where the doers of deeds could have done them better. The credit belongs to the man who is actually in the arena, whose face is marred by dust and sweat and blood, who errs, who comes short again and again, because there is no effort without error and shortening. But who does actually try to do the deeds? Who knows great enthusiasm, the great devotions? Who spends himself in a worthy cause? Who at the best knows in the end the triumph of high achievement? And who at the worst, if he fails, at least while daring greatly?" And that's how the topic of daring greatly comes to her mind, and she writes this book. And why did I choose this book? I chose this book, my friends, because for the first 3 weeks, we talked about power of habits. We talked about habit loop. Then we talked about how these habits get compounded. And at the end, we talked about mindset. But I have a brand new information for you. What you know matters, but who you are matters more. Being rather knowing requires showing up, requires letting ourselves to be seen. It requires to dare greatly, and it requires to be vulnerable. Vulnerability is what we are losing our tolerance in our society for it the most. Vulnerability is absolutely on core of anxiety, pain, and every single difficult emotion you can imagine that we all suffer from. But it is also a birthplace of joy, belonging, creativity, hope, every single emotion, we call them positive. But the thing is that what's driving this tolerance of vulnerability? Brené Brown says it's scarcity. It is the never enough problem. We get scarcity because we live it. This morning, you woke up. Every single morning we wake up. First thing comes to our mind, oh, I didn't sleep enough. Oh, I don't have enough of time today. Even before we sit up in our bed, before our feet touch the floor, we are in adequate mood. We are not enough. Our thoughts are not enough for us. The mindset of scarcity lives at the heart, at every heart of our jealousies, our greed, our prejudice, our argument with life. You know why? Because we are comparing ourselves with other people's life. We are constantly thinking, oh, how much I should calculate how much I want. I should know how much I don't have, how much I have. Then we constantly compare ourselves with that fiction image, fiction accounts we have made from other people in our mind. And you know what's worse than comparing ourselves with others? Comparing ourselves with a story, with a memory being edited from our past and thinking that that past was much better. We call it nostalgia, right? That's even worse. That comparison is even worse way of living, because we don't know what has happened in the past, but we constantly comparing ourselves with that. And at the same time, the word scare, Brené says it comes from the old Norman French word scarce, means restricted in quantity. The irony. So often we miss what is quest for looking for extraordinary. We miss the beauty of the present time. We don't appreciate what we have right now. We have heard it lots of times because we are looking for something extraordinary to be joyful, to be happy. There were lots of time I heard from my dearest people around me that when I asked them, how are you doing? Yeah, I'm doing good. It could be better. I'm waiting. Waiting for what? Life is now. Life is the present time, right? Brené says the abundance and scarcity are not two opposites. They are two sides of the same coin. The opposite of not enough isn't abundance, isn't more than you could ever imagine. The opposite of scarcity is enough. And she calls it wholeheartedness. I love this word. I can connect with it. It resonates with me a lot. Wholeheartedness means facing uncertainty, exposing yourself, emotional risk, knowing that I am enough. That means wholeheartedness. She goes through some myths of vulnerability and she tries to debunk them for us. I chose four of them, four most important ones that apply to all of us. The first one is vulnerability is weakness. We think if we are vulnerable, we are weak. Vulnerability is the place of love, belonging, joy, courage, empathy, faith, hope. But at the same time is the path to the greater clarity in our lives. It takes us to deep, meaningful life. If we let it be, if we just open up, if we let the weakness not to be just a negative emotion. Vulnerability, she calls it uncertainty. She calls it risk, and she calls it emotional exposure. The second myth is vulnerability is letting it all hang out. Such a wrong one. Vulnerability is based on mutuality. It's between two people. You can't just be vulnerable and let it hang out. Everyone knows what's happening in your life and say, I'm vulnerable. Vulnerability requires trust and requires boundaries. It's not oversharing. It's not purging. It's not celebrity-style social media information dump. That's not vulnerability. That's not being vulnerable. Vulnerability is about sharing our feelings and our experiences with people who have earned the right to hear them. Being vulnerable and open is mutual, guys. It's not a one-way road. And it's an integral part of trust building process. She talks about a classroom of one of the classes of her daughter that they had a big jar, marble jar. And the teacher told them that each time as a group of kids, they do something good as group, as whole, they can put a couple of marbles in the jar. And once the jar reaches certain number of marbles, they can do an activity as whole and they like it, with something that they like. At the same time, if they do something, they harm each other, and which is not a good thing as a whole in the classroom, the teacher will take some of the marbles. She says trust is built one marble at a time. Trust is not something that will happen like this. We hear plenty of people say, I'm showing everything in my life to him. I don't know why he doesn't trust me. Trust doesn't happen like this. Trust is a very gradual, very, very, very time-consuming process, and we should spend time on it. And the worst betrayal of trust that you can think of, I don't want to pause and ask people here, but think about it. Most people say, oh, it is being having an affair. But she says, no, it's betrayal of disengagement. If it's betrayal of not caring, of letting the connection go, of not willing to devote time and effort to relationship. It's the trust of not spending time to see what's up with my partner, what's happening to him or her. Trust is a product of vulnerability that grows over and over and requires time and attention and full engagement. Trust, when you disengagement triggers shame, triggers feeling that, oh, I have fear of not being worthy, not being loved, not being and being abandoned. So she says trust isn't a grand gesture. With a huge bucket of roses, you can't earn trust. With a huge Porsche, even, you cannot earn trust. Trust is a growing marble collection. And each time you do something that is against gaining the person's trust, he or she may get a huge fist of the marbles out of the jar. Trust is really, really sensitive. And then she talks about the myth of when we think we can go it alone. It's very interesting. She says going alone is a value that we hold in our society, in our culture, in high esteem. Ironically, cultivating connections, building relationship is based on more than one person. So you can't go alone. You need other people to be vulnerable. Vulnerability is a kind of journey that we cannot make it on our own. We need support, we need encouragement, we need professional help. And she says, so let's see what's shame, how it starts. When we're a kid, shame is at least needs two-person experience, like kind of two-person experience. You share your shame with your parents, you share your shame with your friends in school, with your relatives, with your grandpa, grandma. But the older we get, we learn to shame all by ourselves. We hide the shame. So 3 brand new information about shame. First off, we all have it. If you didn't know it and you were hiding it, know it. We all have shame. Shame is universal, and it's the most primitive human emotion that we can experience. The second one, we are all afraid of shame, and we are afraid of talking about it. And because we are afraid of talking about it, the less we talk, the more it takes control of us. The moment shame is, the problem with shame is that we don't have enough of vocab for it. So because of that, we don't talk about it that much. We let it be. We live it the way it is. And as a result, the shame will just take control and will obsess us. I'm going to share some of research results. First, about vulnerability. She has done lots of interviews regarding to vulnerability. People said vulnerability is blank. Vulnerability is sharing an unpopular opinion. Calling a friend whose child just died. Signing up for my mom for hospice care. Saying I love you first and not knowing if I'm going to be loved back. Presenting my product to the world and getting no response. And then, how does vulnerability feel? Vulnerability, it feels like it's taking off the mask and hoping the real me isn't too disappointing. Being all in. Vulnerability feels like panic, anxiety, fear, hysteria, followed by freedom, pride, amazement, and then a little bit more of panic. And all of these people who she asked questions over and over, they said vulnerability is naked. Vulnerability is like being naked on stage and hoping for applause rather than laughter. Vulnerability is being naked when everyone else is fully clothed. And one more thing I want to talk about is the examples of shame. Shame is getting laid off and having to tell my pregnant wife. Shame is having someone ask me, when are you due, when I'm not even pregnant. Shame is raging at my kids. Shame is bankruptcy. Shame is my husband leaving me for my next door neighbor. Shame is my wife asking me for a divorce and telling me that she wants children but not with me. Shame is hearing my parents fight through the walls and wondering if I'm the only one who feels this afraid. I know it's really uncomfortable, but when you think about it, you know, it's not just you. Every other person around us feeling the same emotions. She talks about 12 categories of shame. Shame in appearance and body image, shame of money and work, family, parenting, mental and physical health, addiction, sex, aging, religion, surviving trauma, and being stereotyped or labeled. I read you the examples in book, and she says shame is real pain. It's not just emotion. Physical pain and intense experiences of social rejection hurt the same way. It's exactly like you break a bone. Same amount of pain, but you don't see the wound. It's inside. We often use the terms of like embarrassment, guilt, humiliation, and shame interchangeably. So the best way to start examining the self-talk and see which are these four emotions we are experiencing is to distinguish between shame and guilt. Shame is I'm bad. Shame is when I tell my son that you are a bad boy. You tell your daughter you are a bad girl. That's shame. Guilt is when I did something bad. When I tell my son you made a bad choice. You did something bad. That's guilt. It applies, my friends, to how we treat ourselves before our kids, before our partner, before everyone around us. Just think about it. How have you been treating yourself? How have you been labeling yourself based on either shame or guilt? Each time you don't see the result you want to see in life in general, do you call yourself a bad person? Do you just attack yourself with the worst adjectives you could imagine? Or you tell yourself the choices I have made so far has taken me to here. I'm not a bad person. And this is the part I wrote it down and I'm gonna keep it in my mind, although I knew it. She says, the words we can never take back are those we use to our partner, our kids, or whoever we are talking about, around the vulnerability, they're being vulnerable. Because if we shame someone around their vulnerability, the serious damage we make there is because we have demonstrated our willingness to use the sacred information as weapon. We are throwing into their face what they gave us as a gift. We are abusing the relationship. And this kind of wound can never heal. It's not possible. It may get a little bit better, but it won't heal. So this is the golden thing in this book for me. And then she talks about common vulnerability shields. I'm going through some of them. The first one is foreboding joy. What is foreboding joy? Foreboding is when we have a good feeling, a joy coming, and then the worriness of what if I lose it comes in back of our mind. I'm gonna start with the examples of book. like standing over my children's bed while they're sleeping and being worried that what will happen if I lose them. It's watching my parents playing with my children. It's getting promoted. It's being happy, falling in love, getting engaged. Some people told stories of getting promoted, heading to headquarters, the moment they're going to the plane, thinking that this is it, we will have a plane crash. That's how this foreboding works. It's probably most difficult emotion, of course, we feel. But why? Because when we lose the ability to be vulnerable, joy becomes something we approach with deep foreboding. If we don't pay attention to our vulnerability, when joy comes, we can't appreciate that joyful moment. And to dare greatly, the best thing you can do is to practice gratitude. If the opposite of scarcity is enough, Brené says, the practicing gratitude is how we acknowledge that everything is enough and we are enough. We don't need to just struggle to have more. So lessons about joy. The first thing he says that joy comes to us in the most ordinary moments. And yet we risk missing out on joy when we chase extraordinary moments. Isn't it ironic? She says, be grateful for what you have right now. She has interviewed lots of people who survived the tragedy of losing loved ones, tragedy of losing an organ in their body, and almost all of them told her that when you honor what you have, you are honoring what I lost. When you honor having your kid healthy, playing in front of you, you are honoring the kid I lost. And then she says, do not squander joy. We cannot prepare for tragedy and loss for sure. But every time we let ourselves to lean into joy and give into those moments, we build resilience and we cultivate hope. And that's all we need for days that are dark for us. So for practicing gratitude, she has a beautiful example. She says once she goes with her daughter to picnic and somewhere which had a beautiful, gorgeous view. They're sitting there, the sun is there, clouds and everything, and suddenly she notices that her daughter has closed her eyes and silently sitting there. She asks her, honey, are you okay? Yeah, mommy. What are you doing there? I'm taking a picture memory, mommy. What is picture memory? Picture memory, mommy, is this beautiful, gorgeous scene. I'm taking picture and I'm keeping it in my mind for those days that I don't feel good. For the days I feel grumpy, I feel sad, I use this picture memory. So my suggestion is that start collecting your picture memories. And then perfectionism. Perfectionism, as Brené calls it, it's 200 pounds shield here on our shoulders. It is not a path that leads us to our gifts or sense of purpose. It's rather the most dangerous detour. It's not a path to being a better person, my friends. We are just protecting ourselves with a very wrong tool called perfectionism. And in order to dare greatly, you need to appreciate the beauty of cracks. When you do everything and you think, oh, wait a second, another piece of flower, I should just change the angle. If I'm decorating, let's decorate in a way that everything is super duper perfect. We are just running away from being vulnerable and doing something not completely perfect. And we are just letting this long journey of what people think to I am enough being longer. It doesn't matter what other people think. We all know that. But it's It's extremely difficult to think I'm enough. The Solmaz is here sitting in front of you is the best she could be. So she's enough. If 10 years later, she hasn't done enough of progress that she has in her mind, then she will think about not being enough. But right now, she's enough. And then she says, this journey of running away from perfectionism starts with shame resilience, then self-compassion, and owning our stories. My stories are mine, and I'm enough with whatever it is. Then she's talking about numbing. What's numbing vulnerability? Numbing is when you sit, you eat, although you don't even feel hungry. Numbing is when you smoke and you can't put it down. Numbing is when you're in debt, yet you're spending lots of money putting balances on your credit card. Numbing is when you work a lot without even needing to work that much. Numbing is being always busy. That's numbing. Numbing is running away from whatever you don't want to think about it. Numbing vulnerability dulls our experience of joy, belonging, creativity, empathy, love, all of them. We can't selectively, that's the brand new information for me too. You can't just say, okay, I'm gonna numb this painful feeling of sadness and leave the rest. You can't. Once you numb one emotion, the rest are all numb. She says, numb the dark and you don't numb the light too. So you either need to leave all of them or none of them. So in order to dare greatly for numbing, you need to first off set boundaries, my friends. Second, find true comfort. We all know true comfort is not sleeping a lot, is not eating a lot, is not being out a lot. True comfort is something internal that differs for each of us, and then cultivates spirit. Think about whatever works for you. For some people, works to exercise and think and listen to something motivating and spiritual. For some people, works to meditate. You know what is the best for you. And then, of course, everything ends up to parenting. Have wholehearted parenting. She asked this gorgeous question. Are you parenting the right way? Are you the adult you want your child to grow up to be? Extremely, like kind of miserable question she's asking. She says, parenting in the culture we have these days is a never enough thing. As parents, we may have less control than we think over temperament and personality, and less control than we want over the scarcity culture. Joseph Pierce says, what we are teaches the child more than what we say. So we must be what we want our children to become. There is a saying says that, do what I say, not what I do, right? That doesn't work though. They copy you. So in order to be able to mind this gap, first thing you need to have in your mind is that by pushing away vulnerability, you turn parenting to a competition that is all about knowing, executing, competing, measuring rather than being. You cannot control everything, but you can be whatever you want to see in future. If we want our children to love and accept who they are, first we should love and accept who we are and know that we are enough the way we are. We can't use fear, blame, shame, judgment in our life and then want to raise courageous, brave children. That's not possible. Supporting our children, I feel this a lot in my son's school. that supporting our children means supporting each other as parents. You cannot claim to care about your child's welfare when you're shaming other parents of the choices they make, of the way they're raising their children. You cannot have a healthy environment to raise your children there. And I'm gonna wrap up with what Brené Brown says. She says, we want more guarantee and belief that we won't be hurt and nothing bad is going to happen. We all want that. But we know we can't have it, right? Life is unexpected. We can't prepare for tragedy and loss. But every time we let ourselves to lean into joy and give in to those moments, we build resilience and we cultivate hope, which we definitely need when those hard days come. I am all done.
Amazing. Amazing. Beautiful. Very empowering messages. There is one question here. People can ask their questions and I will share with Solmaz. So one question is, why do we call this vulnerability, or why do we call it vulnerable? Because, I mean, Ghazal is asking, she says she thought it's a weakness point. Ghazal,
why do we call it, Ghazal, you mean why did we choose this word, or why do in general we call it vulnerability?
You know, Solmaz, up until now, before I heard what you said, I was under the impression that vulnerability is a negative or weak word. I don't know if that is still true or not, or maybe I'm not getting the point here, but is it okay to be vulnerable? Do you have to be vulnerable? Or like, you know how you share your information, you have to gain trust to be able to be vulnerable. It's not always the case. You become vulnerable without you wanting to be vulnerable. So,
okay. First, this is the main reason that this book has been written. You don't have to be vulnerable, but do you have to be hungry?
No.
You feel hunger, right?
Yeah.
So vulnerability is exactly like that. It's a feeling. But how come we don't say, oh, it's bad, I shouldn't say I'm hungry? You never say that, do you? The whole purpose of this book is to look at vulnerability, to look at shame, to look at all these feelings that we have labeled them in our society negatively, to look at them like a kind of feeling that we may experience them daily basis. And regarding to trust, Ghazal, there was a good hit there about how we should trust or not trust other people regarding to being vulnerable. Where should we share the vulnerability with them? And the fact that sharing vulnerability is a mutual thing. It's not one-way road. You can't share it with the whole world expecting that you're okay. You can't hang it out there, right? It's a very time-consuming process, and it needs practice. There is no pill that you take it right now and you think, okay, I know how I feel about vulnerability and how I should share it. You need to practice it.
And it's really hard because there has been situations, I don't know about other people here, but there's been like a lot of situations where you're under a lot of pressure, and without gaining anyone's trust, you go ahead and share a lot of information with a lot of people that you don't even know, just to, get rid of all those emotions and feelings or sad moments. Most of it comes from sad experiences that you end up opening up to the world without gaining anyone's trust.
Exactly. So that's the part she says you need to set boundaries.
Exactly. Yeah.
You need to look for professional help versus talking to people, individuals who may use that vulnerable moment against you and cause wounds that you can barely heal.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm. And DR asked a question. Can you read it for me, Alireza John? I saw it.
There's this, no, she got her answer.
She got her answer.
She said, okay, I got my answer.
Kwan, did you raise your hand?
I didn't. I just thought that somebody asked a great question.
What was that?
Man, I can't pronounce this name correctly, so I apologize in advance.
Oh, it's Didar.
Didar? Yeah.
Yeah.
So what was the
question?
Let's read it. Read it.
Me? Okay.
Yeah. Can you do it for me? I can't find it.
Sure. Knowing the importance of trust and the fragility of being vulnerable, shouldn't we be careful to whom we show our vulnerability? Should we be like an open book? So actually, the second part of the question was what I really appreciated. I have another question after that, but I was like, oh, that's a great question.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I guess I addressed it in Ghazal's question, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So, Kwan, do you want me to add anything else to it?
No. I, like when I put up my hand, I was like, oh, that's a great question. That's what I was.
Yeah, it is actually. It's an amazing question.
Because my question was, so I come from like a Southeast Asian culture, and we have a very big shame-based, like our society is very shame-based.
Yeah.
And so when I listen, and as I was listening to you share, I feel like there are similarities in our cultural background.
Yeah.
And so I'm wondering, like, what additional barriers or what additional pieces of advice can you give to people who do come from a shame-based culture and who naturally shame is almost like a currency?
It is.
That we
brilliant way to build it. Yeah. You're right. Kwan, I'm coming from the same background, right? We are the same, like Middle Eastern, we are all the same. We judge, first off, we judge a lot. We judge ourselves, we judge the community, we judge other cultures a lot, unfortunately, based on whatever has happened to us for ages. And the worst part is that we have the scarcity culture, the never enough culture, right? And it comes from the part our parents and our teachers have taught us that, or better to word it, have blamed us constantly. Oh, if you didn't get 100, it's 99% of 100, so you're not good enough, right? It's been always like that. It comes from perfectionism. It comes from scarcity. What has been revolutionary for me for the last 10 years, I have been following Brené Brown through all Imperfect Parenting is one of the best books she has, because it's not all about parenting. It's about being imperfect. And the speeches in Super Soul Sundays, I'm just mentioning this because it can be extremely helpful for everyone. With Oprah Winfrey, I followed her everywhere, and one thing I'm practicing with her is I am enough. If I can just implement this completely in my mind, that who I am right now is enough. I will be better, but I'm enough right now. I'm not guilty of anything. I'm being imperfect. I'm not be like my parents, daughters, whatever achievement. You know what I'm talking about? This comparison constantly. I'm enough. That's the part I think we need to practice it a lot. And we have been bombarded, Kwan, with media, with social media, TV, advertisement, commercials. They are all giving us one message underneath, very smartly. You are not enough. So you should buy that car, you should buy that makeup thing, you should buy this, you should do that to be enough. The way you are right now is not enough. I'm not sure if I addressed your question.
No, like you did. And what I like is, I mean, at the end of the day, like our upbringing is our upbringing. And we can't really, and we really have a choice. We can either fall victim to that, or we really can assess our expectations. We can recognize like where shame is coming from. We can, be vulnerable. We can open up, and we can just know that where we are is this is okay, and we don't need to let what people say affect our understanding of our self-worth. And shame no longer has to be a currency in our mindset. It's kind of what you're saying, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. No, thank you so much for that. That was great.
My pleasure. Any more questions? I saw someone Toktam wrote something.
Yeah, there is another question by Toktam. Yeah. She says, she's asking, mostly blaming others. We mostly blame others more than we blame ourselves, because we don't accept our responsibility. That's a comment that she says.
Yeah, she's right. When we blame others, basically underneath we are blaming ourselves for choosing them, for letting them to be in our lives. Still, having others doing something wrong to us is our responsibility, right?
It is all our responsibility, for sure. Yeah. Yes. And as she continues, she says, we want to put our responsibility, we found our fathers and mothers responsible, and we say it's because of their attitude, it's because of my mom's or my dad's attitude, from what we learned from the books.
That's right. I saw someone else raise a hand. What is this? Surush asks, can we
say it's our mindset? Is this mindset, I'm enough and you are enough also?
Okay, Surush, you need to just articulate it in a way that I understand it. Can you unmute yourself and ask your question?
So I'm asking basically if this is the correct mindset, sort of to add to what you said, that it is correct that I'm enough, but also I have to keep that in mind that the other person on the other side is also enough.
Yeah, sure. So being out of judgment.
So I'm okay and you are also okay wherever you are.
So far, we are all enough, right?
Yeah.
We are who we are, and it's okay. We can work on ourselves to be better people, to improve. But right now, as we are, there's no blame, no guilt, no shame. Vulnerability is there, and we accept it the way it is.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. And also the other question I was just about to write is it, can we say that it's sort of the art of sharing our feeling at any given moment with the people that we trust?
The first part of your question was we are supposed to?
I was saying that can we say that vulnerability is the art of sharing what we feel at any given moment with the people that we trust?
Yes, sure. Yes. Brené Brown could have interviewed you and you could have said, that's the definition of vulnerability for me. Right, sure. Toktam has written something too. I realized. Surush, did I address your question?
Yeah, I was just kind of, thinking out loud. Yeah, brainstorming. Yeah.
Okay, let me acknowledge this moment for a sec that this, as I said, this topic is a very uncomfortable topic. It's not something like mindset or compound effect that, yes, let's go, let's achieve it. It's something that sits in our heart and our mind, and it hurts. And I'm acknowledging this moment here. For me, for the last week, I was going through this book again and getting some parts and working on it. It has been the most miserable time of my life because I faced some vulnerability, some vulnerable moments there. I reviewed my life kind of since 10 years ago to today, and it's not easy. Life is not all about cheerful moments, joy, happiness, drinking wine, enjoying with friends. Life is those uncomfortable moments hearing something from someone else, digesting in your mind, and not being able to express yourself because you cannot trust that person. Life is about constant judgment that we do ourselves before other people even dare to talk to us. Life is about daring greatly. That's why it's so difficult to face it.
Mm-hmm. When we change our mindset, being vulnerable will be okay, and we will be okay with being vulnerable as well. If we think we are supposed to be perfect, and when we see the world, we just want to pretend that we are perfect, while on the inside we know that we are not, and we are just playing this role, we are just wearing this mask in front of others, and we tell people, hey, I'm perfect, but on the inside we don't feel good, and sometimes we just hide the question, the problem, as a form of a question, and we don't express it. But being vulnerable gives us exactly. That's exactly what she said and what you said. We numb it because that way we feel kind of secure, but we are not actually deeply secure, because we are always feeling this weakness and insecurity, but we just pretend that it's a perfect version of us in the society. But that's
so
good
point. Exactly, Alireza. That was really good you mentioned it. Toktam says, I couldn't feel vulnerability well. Would you, Toktam, John, this is being vulnerable right now. This sentence you wrote down is being vulnerable.
Weaknesses.
Yeah, weaknesses.
Talking about weaknesses.
It's not exact. Okay, vulnerability in Farsi is being asipazir. Let's make it easier, right? And asipaziri is any kind of feeling that I think I would be judged. It's not right. Actually, weakness, calling vulnerability weakness was one of the myths, darling. I tried to say it's not weakness. She got it. She says I got it better. Yeah, it's not weakness, actually. Vulnerability is being at the moment, not knowing what to do, right? As being questioned, the kind of question that you don't have any answer for it, and you're on stage in front of hundreds of people. That's being vulnerable. You're not weak, you're vulnerable, right? And it hurts. It hurts, but it's being human being. Any more questions?
We still have few more minutes left.
Yeah, we have
three more minutes. Yes. If there's any other question.
Any other questions? It seems we're good. I'm gonna thank.
Yeah, Solmaz, you can give us just give us one or two more specific example of a person being vulnerable, so that we complete this, so people have a better, even clearer idea.
Yeah, for me, working with lots of parents, vulnerability is being a parent, having your child outside who is laying down on the street and just screaming and yelling, and you're thinking what other people will think about me, what kind of parent I am. That's being vulnerable. Vulnerability is being stuck at home because of COVID-19 and not knowing what will happen in future, close future. Vulnerability is planning your days day by day because you don't know what to do with your 5-year-old son at home. That's being vulnerable. I have the best. The other day I was talking about it with my husband. He said, for me, vulnerability is putting check mark in the small square at the end of the letter they're laying me off. That's being vulnerable. So for each of us has a different meaning, but it doesn't mean we are weak. It doesn't mean we are insufficient, inadequate. It doesn't mean we are not enough. It means we are human being. It means we are learning. It means we will grow more in future. If you acknowledge your moment of vulnerability right now, right here, it means you are more than enough, my friends. It means you are at the level of cautiousness that you can get yourself through everything and you can be better person in future. Actually, I think it's a very beautiful gift to acknowledge it. It feels much better. It doesn't have that kind of weight on your shoulders that you don't know what to do with yourself.
Exactly.
And again, about shame, I want to share something that the more you share your shame with your trusted people, the less control shame will have on you, and the less you will feel it inside. Like that pain will go away. Shame is a sneaky enemy that appears where there is no other word surrounding it. The moment you start describing it, that monster runs away. Yeah.
Amazing. Thank you, Solmaz. You did a great job in simplifying this whole concept and the book, and giving us in the little chunks, the key chunks and important chunks of it. Beautiful. Tomorrow we will be with Zishan. We have, oh my God, we just have 2 more sessions to go. I tell you, I'm already thinking of some new strategies and new initiatives. I'll share with you and with my friends first, and then I will announce it. We definitely can do something after this book nuggets summit and everything. So tomorrow we will be with Zishan. He's going to talk about Think and Grow Rich. Many of you have already read that book. It's an amazing book. We will have that session, and our final session, 20th session, will be with Sina, that we will talk about it more. Thank you again, Solmaz.
Thank you, everybody. I want to thank everyone for giving this opportunity to be such good listeners, to ask these meaningful, deep questions, and helping us to be better. Thank you very much. Hope to see you all soon. Take care.
Thank you.
Take care.
Everybody.
Thank you again.
Goodbye. Goodbye.